Hi, I'm Ollie, and in this new After Effects tutorial we're going to see different ways to create reactive lights and shadows inside After Effects. Motion graphics is deeply based on imitating the real-world behaviors, so we have two main ways to approach this: point light and directional light. With point light we have an emitter point that goes toward every direction, so every element is hit by a different angle. With directional light, instead, we have just an angle, a vector, and all the shadows follow the same direction. If this direction is determined by a vector, in After Effects we have two systems. We can just have an angle controller, or we can have 2 points, and the line that connects these 2 points is our shadow direction. So, to be able to use both systems, we are going to create 2 nulls. One we can call it emitter, the other we can call it destination. The relative position between these 2 nulls will establish our light direction. If we just want to use a point light, obviously we don't need a destination and can keep only the emitter. If we want a directional light, we don't need an emitter and a destination because we could just use an angle control. But I'm keeping both the emitter and destination combo because I plan to use a combination of point and directional lights. Anyway, I have this base animation and now we can start applying some stuff on it. On top of our solid we can create an ellipse and apply a linear gradient. We rename it color overlay and set the base solid as a matte. On this solid rotation we apply this expression to have it follow the directional light. As you can see, if we move one of the 2 points of the directional light, the gradient rotation changes accordingly. Also, we have to parent the gradient to its base solid so that it follows it. And we also have to animate the gradient's extremes position because the base solid changes dimension. Now, a slightly different combination, we still set up linear gradient as a base, this time with different colors, but the gradient will be now fixed in space. Then we create a second gradient that will be pure black and white. As we did before, we rename it, this time shadow overlay. And again we set the base layer as a matte. Like before, we paste the same rotation expression to have the gradient follow the light angle, but this time we set the layer on overlay and we adjust the opacity. With this system we have 2 gradients, one fixed, one reactive to the light that crosses each other. Obviously also this gradient must be parented to the base shape layer, and the gradient points must be animated to match the motion. On my shape layer I can now apply a layer style, bevel and emboss. Let's then increase the size just for a moment so that everything is more clear. On the angle parameter we apply this expression and now we have a more three-dimensional aesthetics to our shape that moves following the light position. Of course this is too big, so let's change the setting to have it smaller, sharper and more elegant. Now I want to do the same with the transparent shape, but with slightly different settings. And again with the colored shape, again with different settings, so that each shape has a different type of thickness and appearance. Okay, great. Now we have an additional level of lights and details to our elements. Let's start with a very simple shadow. Just drag a drop shadow effect on our solid, and again I'll increase the distance so that everything is more clear. Then we can apply this expression to the shadow direction. You can find it in the video description. And then we can fix it a little bit by changing color, softness and opacity. And that's it, we already have a first type of reactive shadow. Or we can turn it off and do the same with a layer style instead of an effect. So layer style, drop shadow, increase the distance and apply the expression to the shadow angle, and again we can stylize it. Okay, it's important to notice that different style and effects uses different parameters to manage the direction of a shadow. Some uses a direction where 0 is on top, other uses an angle where the 0 is on the right. So that's why we use different expression, or we have to do some manual tweaking in the expression to add the variable at the end to adjust the value. But for good measure, I invite you to download the tutorial file that you can find on my download page in the link in the video description. There you can also find the files of all my other tutorials and a bunch of cool and useful resources for motion designer. For example, the script that I'm using is called Color Palette, and it allows you to save colors and their hex code to work more easily in your project. You can contract and expand the UI, but the coolest feature is that you can select a color and swap it around the project. So if you change your mind and want another color, you simply select it, click on swap, and the script will search every editable color parameter in the project and swap it with a new one. Another super cool script is a layout grid that allows you to generate layout guides so you can arrange your elements in the composition correctly. Text blocks is another great script where you just paste the text and it will automatically generate text layers for each line. Path follows is absolutely my favorite because it allows you to move null objects along a moving path to create really interesting animations. And not only script, but you can also find some cool templates like this collection of fake 3D objects that can be used in a bunch of different projects. Or my absolute favorite is this rig of bounded shapes that have different types of bounding properties and can be used for different types of shapes animation. Anyway, check them out because there are a lot of cool tools and resources for motion designer. And now back to the tutorial. Let's turn off the shadow to try to make something more interesting. Let's duplicate the shape layer and rename it shadow. And recolor it. Let's apply a radial fast blur with a value around 90. But that is not enough, as with a normal shadow I want this to have a little bit of offset from the shape, while maintaining the light orientation. So let's add a slider control to the position, and then on the position we can add this expression. What it says is to keep an opposite direction from the emitter to the base shape and maintain a distance based on the value of the slider we just applied. And I'll keep the distance around 30. I also want to turn back on the basic drop shadow from before. And obviously we have to parent the position of the radial blur to the position of the emitter, so that also this shadow is reactive. The radial blur is a bit strong, so I want to apply another level of blur to soften it up a little. Now I want to create a shadow that is splitted, meaning that has different values on different surfaces. So I'm duplicating shape B and repeating the same process of before. So renaming shadow 1 and shadow 2, then add slider control with 2 different values. These sliders will determine the position offset, so I'm setting the first with a lower value like 5 and the second with a higher value like 30. Then to these 2 shape position, I'm going to apply the expression we used before to offset the position. Also I forgot to remove the bevel and emboss effect, so let's get rid of that. Now let's change the color of the solids with the color from our palette we use for the shadow. Let's set it on multiply and you can already see where we are going. We have 2 different shadows with 2 different position offset. We can now apply fast box blur effect with the 2 different blur values. So we can simply set the base as a matte for the first and as inverted matte for the second. And we have this cool effect of the shadow that splits based on which surface is hitting. To finish up the piece, I added these impact waves when the shapes get hit by the light. Those are just blurred ellipses. Then, of course, all the graphics inside the shape panels. And also, after the first impact, I duplicated the background and made a darker version. Then I added this white layer with a shade to create some light effect. But as you can see, when you have a gradient with not so much contrast, it creates this horrible line. What I try to do to fix it is to apply the effect scatter with a value around 200, and usually it solves the problem. So, thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments if there is some topic you would like to see a video about. Also, check out my download page and all the useful tools that I use in my workflow, because they can be a great help for you too. I will see you in the next video. Bye!